to Suits and Sneakers, a series featuring sage advice and candid conversations with seasoned leaders from diverse backgrounds and styles. I'm your host, Carrie Tuttle. With my guests, we deep dive into the areas of team engagement, motivation, and effective performance management. Get ready to be inspired and transform your approach to leadership. Please like, subscribe, or follow to be notified when episodes are released. Let's get started. My guest today is Shauna MacDonald, founder and principal of Brookline Public Relations in Calgary, with offices in Edmonton and Toronto as well. Shauna is a PR powerhouse. When she announced she was opening her own firm, the consistent response was, "It's about time." Known for her unique approach and breadth of experience, Shauna provides strategic public relations expertise to companies of all sizes throughout North America. Prior to starting Brookline, Shauna was vice president and managing director of Western Canada for an international public relations firm, as well as the marketing communications practice leader for its Canadian operations. Shauna has cultivated long-standing client relationships and developed game-changing campaigns across all major business sectors. Shauna, welcome to Suits and Sneakers.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here, Carrie.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to talk to you. I mean, we know each other from a very long time ago. We won't say how many years ago that was, but and I am so excited to talk to you about what you've been doing with Brookline. It's such a great Calgary success story. So
thank you.
First fun question though, what's your normal work attire?
What's my normal work attire? I would say jeans and a blazer typically is what we wear. Yes, and what I wear.
Cool. So a little mix of casual and sort of business casual, I guess you would say.
Correct. And you might find me on Mondays and Fridays at home on Teams or Zoom with Lulus and a blazer, because you really need to see that particular portion, do you?
Yeah, absolutely. The Zoom uniform, it's always just that top portion.
We're all guilty of it, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, that's awesome. So give us a little bit of background just on in Brookline, what niche do you guys focus on and what kind of work do you do for your clients?
It's a great question. I actually wouldn't say that we have a particular niche. We are a full service PR agency. And what that means is we'll work with clients who need us from a reactive standpoint, whether it's crises or issues related, or proactive, where a particular brand or company is looking to launch a new product or a new service or a new location or a new hotel. And I think everything in between. So from crisis communications to media relations and social media, we dive into financial communications too, when companies are going through M&A or mergers and acquisition work, internal communications. So we're the full gamut for sure. And I would say, and work with a variety of different sectors and industries. So we are that full service firm.
Very cool. And so when I know actually there's been some kind of famous campaigns that you've run, anything that anybody would maybe be familiar with if they're in Western Canada?
We've worked with a lot of great brands, from the Brick across the country and launching some influencer relations campaigns and media relations in terms of their new product offerings, to professional hockey teams, where my famous and favorite team, the Edmonton Oilers, we work with, and they're going on the cup run right now. So it's perfect timing. We've worked with the Edmonton Oilers and building out Ice District in Edmonton. So when you see Sportsnet zooming in on all the crowds outside, we built that with the infrastructure and the clients in Edmonton. So we're really proud of that, and a huge feather in our cap. To hotel openings, from the JW Marriott in Edmonton to the International Airport Marriott in Calgary. So it's all encompassing. And even next week's Global Energy Show is being hosted in our own backyard here. We do all the media relations and PR for that particular event as well.
That's amazing. I know I don't know if it's really a not-for-profit, but I know recently there was a campaign for the Calgary Library, fifth book campaign.
Yes.
And so that's kind of more of a community-based one.
One of our favorite clients. So the Calgary Public Library we've been working with for a few years, and anything from proactive PR in terms of what new campaign they're launching to community-driven events in a variety of libraries within the city. It's really one that's near and dear to our heart and hits every single demographic of our city.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hire quite a lot of students, like I think every year, right? So
Yes.
what is your approach to mentorship with new professionals?
We actually have a mentorship program at Brookline. So we look and ensure that we seek out students for internship positions. And quite a few of our longstanding team members were interns at one point. So they either started at Brookline, went back to school, or started at Brookline as an intern, then went on and did another internship, then came back. We have 2 interns right now. One is from SAIT and one is from Mount Royal. And so because of that, some of these students have never worked in an office setting before. They don't know protocol, they don't know etiquette, business etiquette, if you will. So the mentorship program at Brookline really helps these students kind of dive into an office setting, because a lot of these students have come through university through COVID. So they didn't have that opportunity, or those internships have been delayed. So the mentorship program is really important, just to have that buddy system to go to and make sure that they have some goals that they want to achieve during the internship. They also have someone to go to, and no question is a bad question, right? I think the question that's the worst question is the one not asked. So just making sure that they really have that sounding board to go to. And that mentorship is built throughout the entire organization. So whether you're an intern at Brookline or a new hire at Brookline, you have this mentorship for your first 6 months, which is great.
That's amazing. And a great way to show involvement in the community and really bring up like that succession plan too of talent. So it's a great program.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And these interns also become mentors at some point if they stay on at Brookline. So they kind of come full circle, which is really awesome.
Yeah, very cool. How do you approach assigning increasing responsibility to those new professionals?
I think it comes with results driven work. So if you've been able to kind of deliver on the work that you've been asked to do, and you've raised your hand and said, hey, let me try this, never done it before, and you succeed, and you build up that confidence, but also build up that work portfolio, you show the team that you're ready for something next. And I've always said that I will look for someone and I will hire someone that's passionate and eager versus someone who knows exactly what to do, because I think you need that person that's a little bit charismatic in PR, is willing to take a bit of a risk in not doing something before, but also willing to accept the consequences if it's not done right and learn from that, right? And so you will build your repertoire or your responsibility in the agency by taking those risks, but also being successful in those risks, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. You're bringing up such an interesting idea, because I can't tell you how many people who come into sort of a leadership development investment decision, investing in their people. And a lot of them say, I hire smart people. Why can't they just do their job? Why do I have to develop them so much? And yet you're taking the opposite approach. You're saying, I'm going to take somebody who probably knows very little, right? Well, not very little. They know lots, but they're new and they're moldable, and I'm going to mold them.
Yes, but not even at the entry level, right? We will look at resumes, and is one thing, but I think that interview scenario is so key as well. And just getting a sense of that person from a purposeful perspective. Like, they've obviously applied for a reason. They want to be here, and they may not have the experience that someone else might bring to the table, but they've got that spark, they've got that passion, and they're showing eagerness and willing to learn. And to me, that is so much more important than someone who on paper has the experience, but yet isn't driven or raising their hand to say, hey, let me take that on.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't train a good attitude.
Right.
Yeah. I love that. And what about as far as, a big client? How do you decide when someone who's maybe a bit more junior is ready to take on that big client?
I think that's on a case-by-case basis. More often than not, when a new, shiny, awesome brand comes into the agency, everyone wants a little piece of it, right? Because it's really exciting. And I think it's a little bit of trial by fire, in the sense of let them take on a piece of it, learn the process, because the bigger the brand, the bigger the budget, the more complex the overall the work is. So without giving them too much rope, give them something to work on with that particular client, and let them see the bigger picture with the rest of the team. I think that's probably the most successful way to do it, versus saying, no, you're not ready for it next time. They need to see what they're getting themselves into, and seeing that with a bit more of a senior team lets them realize, oh my goodness, I know I could never have taken that on. Or you know what? I actually can next time, right? So they see that perspective.
Yeah. And seeing when you're part of it, okay, here's my part, and then here's other team members' part, and maybe the overall project management part of it, they get a sense for each of it. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
What's a difficult situation you've had to manage through in leading people?
In leading people?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's a great question. I might have to think about that one. I don't know, like in any situation when you're the leader or the founder of an organization, you need to be able to listen to different perspectives. You need to ensure that everyone is heard. But at the end of the day, sometimes you need to make tough decisions. And sometimes those tough decisions are not consistently agreed upon, but you need to make sure that you need to have that rationale. And even if you feel that you've given the rationale, this is why we're doing it, there still might be some people that just don't understand it. And you have to be okay with that. And I think for me, sometimes because we're a tight knit group, that will sit with you for a little bit, right? Even though you've done you've done your best to make sure that you've looked at all different perspectives and different scenarios, and still had to make some tough decisions and gave them the proper rationale. You just have to be okay with some people not being okay with it. And that's tough.
That is tough, definitely. When you started your firm, did you think that that was going to be part of the journey, or were you more focused on the client part of it?
I had the opportunity of being in a similar situation with the international PR firm before I started Brookline and running their Western Canadian offices. So I did have experience in that space, but at the same time, my decision ultimately wasn't the end all be all. I still had to report into Toronto, who had to report into New York, right? Whereas with Brookline, I was like, yo, this is me. Like, I'm making this final decision. So that was the bigger difference. Whether it was client facing or employee facing, the buck stopped with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's different. Who do you run your decisions by or seek advice from?
I have a great senior team. I have 3 other senior team members here who are fantastic, and they all bring different perspectives and they all have different experiences, which is great. But I also often look outside the agency. I've got a few what I would call informal advisors that have either been client side for me in years past and are now just like lasting friends. My husband is a great sounding board too. I tend to kind of just bring him in quickly and ask him, what do you think of this? And he's a businessman and an entrepreneur. We don't always agree, but I just need to make sure that I have that sounding board as necessary. So there's a nice circle of people that I tend to go to.
Definitely. So how would you describe your leadership style? Or actually, how would your team describe your leadership style, which might be slightly different?
My team would probably describe my leadership style as empowering but direct.
Okay.
So I will give you a lot of rope, but I'll also make it very clear what the expectations are.
Okay. That's something that I think a lot of leaders struggle with, actually, is making those expectations clear. So how do you go about it, or how do you approach the clarity of expectations?
I would say, and I'm not trying to be facetious in any way, if I'm in the communications business, I should be able to be very clear with my goals and my expectations. Otherwise, I should not be consulted. So I think that's one of the key skill sets I would expect of someone in my field, is to be very clear and concise with expectations and communicate that very well.
What are some of the guardrails you put in place for your team?
Well, our primary work and our primary business is content, right? Whether that is a media statement during a crisis or a press release to announce a new product or an internal communication where company X is laying off so many employees during COVID. Our work is content. So that message and that content needs to be completely error-free, concise, effective, and efficient. So our guardrails are, we ensure that anything that's going outside of the agency has checks and balances. There's multiple eyes on multiple documents, and nothing is sent externally without that process in place. Now, at times, is there a small catch? Yes, but we do our very, very best to ensure that those guardrails are maintained.
Yeah, because I mean, it's like horrifying when you see something go out and it's out in the public's eye and then you notice a mistake after the fact. It's pretty hard to pull that back. So
Exactly. Yes.
yeah.
And so I think in our business, people understand that, but also our clients are expecting us to be that finite editor with a very, very prescriptive process so that we have those checks and balances are in place at all times.
Well, and I would argue that anybody in an operations or a client management, client service type role should have a similar process because it's pretty hard. Once it's gone, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the client's seen it. Yeah.
I agree. 1,000%.
Yeah. What do you do to help, or what levers do you pull to motivate your team?
Things that we use. I think everyone is different in terms of what motivates them. A lot of people, some team members are looking for that manager to be working very tightly and very closely with them. Others are looking for autonomy. So we really have to gauge what's going to spark each person. But collectively as a team, I think what motivates us is working very collaboratively, celebrating team wins. We have a culture group within our organization as well, and making sure that we have those little breaks if needed. We just had a team lunch right before I came and met with you, and we have quarterly fun days. We celebrate milestones with the team. And I think I see these people, and I'm sure you've chatted with many leaders, I see these people more than I often see my family. So we need to make sure that the people we're working with, we enjoy working with, and vice versa. So making sure that we're motivated, we love what we do, and then the results will come.
Yeah. Well, and knowing them on a human level, not
Mm-hmm.
just on a task level.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that. I think you have some creative things that you do, some programs that you do as well within the company. Is that right?
Programs in terms of,
Thinking of, like, for example, flex days or a me day.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have me days. We've got a clothing allowance that we give out to the team every fall, which is awesome. We've done that even during COVID. It's just a nice perk because we're going back out into seeing clients in person. We're going to a lot of conferences. Clients are coming back into the office. A little pep in the step in terms of having some new fashion to show off with the other team members. So that's great. Birthdays off, summer days off. So we've got all of these perks, and I think you have to maintain that level because in terms of making sure that people want to be here, they can go anywhere else. We want to also maintain competitiveness with anyone else that they might be seeking to work with. But we also want to make the work fun and make sure that people are learning and giving them those opportunities you talked about when they may not be ready to take on a big momentous client, but they could have a piece of it and see what that looks like.
For sure. How can, a lot of the leaders who are listening might be newer or earlier in their career. How can leaders apply PR concepts to help their career?
I like that question. If you're a new leader, I think PR could certainly help you, but you also have to maintain authenticity. So if you're a leader, I think where PR and communications comes in is you are never over communicating. So if you have a team and you need to communicate a message, ensure that you do so. Don't do it flippantly, do it in writing, but also in person. Make sure that you're following up. PR is about communication, right? Whether it's an internal audience or an external audience. So as a leader, People will follow you. They will embrace your leadership style if they know what you're looking for and if they know what you stand for. So making sure that you communicate that is really, really important. And outlining those expectations we talked about before.
Yeah. Who are, I wonder if we can name names here, but who are some leaders that you've seen do it right and some leaders you've seen do it wrong?
Oh, let me think about that. Well, I could talk about a few wrong, but I don't know if I should. We might need to consider that one. I think
Okay,
there's
I'll give you the out, and it's how did they do it wrong without naming a name?
well, you could look at on the global stage, right? Like, and I am getting political, but there's certain leaders that ego gets in the way. You could name President Trump for that matter, and we could go into multiple ways of how that is not done well. You could go into leaders who do it very well. And I go back to former President Barack Obama. Whether you like him as a political leader or not, whether you lean Democratic or not, he's a phenomenal communicator, both with the press, both with constituents, and sets a purpose with what he needs to say. So I think there's authenticity there, there's regard, there's respect. You may not like him, you may not agree with him, but there's a respect there. And I think that's what a leader needs to have, no matter if you like them or not. I think other leaders, like the current president, there's a lack of respect. And if you don't have that, it is difficult to have people follow.
Yeah. And I think just the Barack Obama example is so great because you could tell that he was thoughtful in all of the words that he used. He was very intentional in his communication. And when leaders are intentional and planning and thinking through who am I talking to? Who's my audience? They're usually well received, again, whether you agree with them or not.
Right.
Yeah.
And I bring this up when I have multiple political conversations, and I know we're going into that political pool right now, but I've often said, had President Trump delivered his message in a thoughtful, intentional, non-reactive way, if Barack Obama, former President Barack Obama, was saying the same message as President Trump, I would guarantee it would be received very differently because of that connection. Now, would it last? I'm not sure. All I'm saying is there's a delivery and there's an intention and there's an authenticity and a respect piece. So I think that's very key if you're looking at a leader and how to be a leader.
Now, you generally work with brands. So, how does a brand communicate in a way that connects with people in the same way that a leader can communicate and connect with people?
I think it's very similar because there are often leaders attached to brands. So you think of Phil Knight and Nike, you think of Chip Wilson and Lululemon, like everyone has a connection back to the brand, good or bad. And you think of the Comries and the Brick who we've worked with. There's an authenticity, there's an intention, but there's also a story. And I think with brands, you always have to go back to the story. Why was this brand produced? Why was it created? Where does this brand want to go? Who is this brand's audience? And so answering the why questions really help tell that story as well. But I would say brands often have a story to tell, and some are often also related to a person.
Yeah. And it's almost like you're personifying, like making the brand into its own character in the story.
Right.
Yeah.
But then you think of other brands, and it's interesting. One of our senior members just wrote a blog about this, about having that connection of a person with the brand can hurt or help. And I think of Tesla and Elon Musk, right? So if you're attached to a certain brand and your personal initiatives are not in line with typical thinking or typical decision making, it can often hurt a brand. So really deciding, do I want to be connected to that brand or do I not? And if I do, what's the risk of me making personal, political, grandiose decisions?
That's really interesting too, because as employees, a leader can often represent the brand quite nicely by sharing news and achievements that have happened within the company. And sometimes they don't want to be associated with the brand. So that's really interesting. As a leader, what do you recommend that your staff do as it relates to representing the brand in public?
With Brookline,
Yeah.
I encourage it, but I also encourage it in a very professional way, right? So network as much as you can. You have a professional life, you have a personal life, and people need to see that. But at the same time, when you become part of the Brookline team and the Brookline family, it's very well known, our 4 pillars of professional, results driven, fresh, and creative story ideas. So want to personify that inside and outside the organization. So the team knows that, and it's certainly encouraged.
Yeah, I think you're in a bit of a unique position because a lot of people who are managing their career and the trajectory of their career don't have a PR background.
Right. Yes.
So, you think of the typical accountant or engineer, they're often like, okay, I'm going to head down, do my work, and that's going to speak for me. Do
Right.
you think that that works for leaders, or at least the leaders you've worked with?
I think it does to a point. At some point, though, you are in a leadership position for a reason. So it's more or less about doing and more or less about let's go see what else we can do. Right? So that visionary, that strategy, that next step, that's what people sign up to be a part of, right? So that constant doing is great, but someone else can probably learn to take that on. And I go back to that big client I talked about. At some point, that person who wants to be a part of it is going to take on an even bigger piece. So my role is like, okay, what else is next? And you've heard this in multiple business books. You've heard this in multiple talks. We have to embrace change or we're not going to succeed. So I think as a leader, you have to constantly look for that next new thing or that next new change.
Mm-hmm. And be thinking bigger. I think spending a little bit of time being a bit of a philosopher is good practice.
Right.
Yeah. What's your philosophy on leading your team? Like, what is your kind of high level goal and what would you like to see?
My philosophy, I think, in a nutshell, as I said, is I will give you a chance all the time, but you need to prove yourself. So in order to get that chance, you need to make sure that you've kind of ensured that you not necessarily tick the boxes, what have you, but I mean, ensure that you're ready for it, right? I'll give you that chance. I'll give you that risk. I'll give you as much rope as you need. But if you fail, you have to learn from it. And my biggest thing that I say to my team is you need to own it. So whether you win or lose, you need to own it no matter what. And if that means going to the client and saying, you know what, we made a mistake, but we're going to fix it and here's why, or we did great and here's why, still own it. So I think that's always been my philosophy.
Are you comfortable with or like a big delegator, or do you tend to stay involved in a lot of the client work?
I'm involved with the client work for some clients. Some clients I'm completely hands off because the other senior team members will take them on. There's particular clients that I just have history with, or it's a significant project that needs a little bit of my expertise. But for the most part, I would say hands off, but there for strategy for clients.
Nice. What advice would you give to your younger self taking on when you first kind of started in leadership?
Don't take it personal.
What do you mean by that?
So when I first became a leader, as I said, you'd have to sometimes make some tough decisions, and sometimes those decisions didn't sit well with certain people, and it would just like I'd stay up at night and go, oh well, should I have said it this way or should I have said it that way? And I think that in itself, you're showing that you care, but at the same time, it takes up a lot of space. And most likely that person has already moved on or probably didn't even know or think that you meant it this way. And they're like, oh, I didn't even know you said it that way. But you're still in your head, right? Going, oh, I should have said it. So I think as long as your intentions are right and you take the time to make decisions thoughtfully, don't take things personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If it's the right decision, you're going to stand by it
Right.
anyway. So,
Yeah.
yeah. What are you most proud of?
Brookline just celebrated 20 years. And I know 20 years ago, the stats were even worse than they are now. Like 10% of small businesses succeeded. when you first started, right? So for us to be in business for 20 years and to be profitable every single year, and have a team that's continued to grow, I think that's one of the most prideful moments for sure.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about who you go to for help. What are some of your favorite books or podcasts or resources that you like to use?
For me, I'm not a big business podcast fan. I go into more personal brain on that one and just kind of let my brain relax a little bit. So that's with me. On the book side, I was given the book Good to Great many years ago, and I recommend it. I love it. I go back to it. It's been highlighted. I love that book. And I think, again, mentors and advisors that I just kind of have in my corner that I can go to for any quick question. They're all great resources.
I think mentorship is a huge benefit to leaders. Did you ever approach anyone and say, hey, would you be my mentor? Or has it happened more organically for you?
More organically, I think. Like I said, with one particular former client, we would go out for lunch and he'd ask me questions about the business. And I'd be like, what would you do? And then it just kind of became a bit of a thoughtful discussion. And so he's kind of joked about being my informal advisory board, and I often go to him. There's another person as well that I go to. She's been great. She's, again, another former client of mine, more on the finance side. So I've always gone to her with some quick questions about this or that. So they've been very receptive. And I think because they've worked with me on the client side, they kind of see where Brookline is going and what we do. So it's been really helpful.
Yeah, well, and they know what you're really good at because they've experienced it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. What's coming for you for the rest of 2025 and 2026?
Well, for 2025, we're hoping, and you'll get an invite, we're hoping to do something celebratory around our 20 years in the fall. So stay tuned, but I'm going to be a little bit tight-lipped about that. Again, something that we're very happy about and proud of. So that's happening for sure. We've been able to kind of build our team a bit more in Toronto. So we're looking to really get some more business out of that market. I think COVID certainly helped where great work can happen from anywhere. So we certainly still work across the country, but I think having that team on the ground is going to be really helpful and strategic for us. So really excited about that as well.
Oh, that's so exciting. Yeah, there's tons of business out in Ontario and east of Ontario. So to be able to have local representation, local talent to support your clients, that's going to be a huge advantage.
I know, we're excited.
Yeah. So what other advice would you like to give to new leaders?
I think for me, mine is a little bit different because I'm a leader, but also an entrepreneur. And I think this is more for those entrepreneur interested leaders, if that's a word, to consider is the light is never off. So if you're going to dive in as an entrepreneur, there is no off switch. You have to be ready for all in all the time, but also be ready for flexibility, right? So as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, I can call my hours and I can go see my son's rugby game, but I also need to make sure that I'm showing up for my team here and not taking too much advantage of that, but knowing that you have that flexibility. But with that, again, the light is never off, you're always on. So you need to be able to dive in, lean in, and make that commitment, or you're not, trust me, you're not going to be successful.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it's a lesson for leaders who are an employee to respect and understand that that's what their leader is going through. If they're reporting to somebody who is an entrepreneur, it's like, what can you do to support? And that will make you invaluable to your leader. So
yeah, that's exactly it. Exactly.
Yeah. Having people you can trust is key.
Yeah, that I think, and I've been very lucky, like I said, with my senior team. Most of them have been with me for over a decade, which is awesome. I've seen them grow and they're in these positions now. And we're more than just colleagues. And we all have that vision of growing the agency and building it and seeing it become more successful. So it's awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I'm so glad that we had this time today, and I appreciate everything you've shared. And I know you have a podcast, but it's sort of like special features, right? And
yes.
Yeah. So we'll put the link in the show notes as well to that so that people can check out your episodes and
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, and check out your website. So thank you again, Shauna. I really appreciate it.
This was really fun. Thank you.
We're glad you joined us for Suits and Sneakers. If you want to be an expert guest, look for the link in the show notes. Don't forget to follow or subscribe to be notified of future episodes.